HBO just revealed 21 new Hogwarts students for the Harry Potter series, and chances are you've never heard of a single one of them. That's actually the best possible sign. I spent hours digging through the internet to figure out who these actors are, what roles they're playing, and why this casting list might secretly confirm something huge about the show. Especially when we get to the Slytherin lineup. Let's get into it. When you look closely at this casting list, something becomes obvious very quickly. HBO is not just filling background roles. They're rebuilding the entire Hogwarts ecosystem the way it actually works in the books. The movies, even though they're iconic, always had to compress things. A lot. Hogwarts often felt like a small school where only a handful of students actually existed. You had the main trio, a few Gryffindors around them, and the rest of the castle sort of faded into the background. But the books were never like that. Hogwarts is supposed to feel busy, competitive, sometimes chaotic. There are rivalries between houses, friendships between different year groups, Quidditch teams with actual personalities, and dozens of students whose names pop up again and again across the 7 books. And this new casting announcement immediately signals that HBO wants to recreate that full environment. The clearest example is Gryffindor. Instead of just introducing Oliver Wood and leaving it at that, the series is casting the entire Gryffindor Quidditch structure from the start. Orson Matthews will play Oliver Wood, the famously intense Quidditch captain who basically treats every match like the World Cup final. If you remember the books, Wood is hilarious because of how obsessed he is with strategy and training. Harry can barely survive his first weeks on the team without being dragged into long tactical speeches about formations and practice schedules. But Wood alone doesn't make the team feel real. The important thing is the group around him. Asha Soatan will play Angelina Johnson, Arif Farrell will portray Katie Bell, and Sarana Suling Bliss has been cast as Alicia Spinett. Those 3 names might not jump out immediately for casual viewers, but book readers instantly recognize them as the core chasers of the Gryffindor team. In the novels, they appear repeatedly across multiple years. They train together, they compete against Slytherin, they celebrate wins, and they help create the feeling that Quidditch is actually a major part of school life. Angelina eventually becomes captain later in the story. Katie Bell ends up involved in one of the darkest cursed object storylines, and Alicia Spinett is part of the team during Harry's earliest seasons. The films barely had time to show this dynamic. Most matches were reduced to quick montages with Harry chasing the snitch. But the fact that HBO is casting all 3 chasers right away suggests the show might finally explore Quidditch as a full sport with real teammates, rivalries, and personalities. And then there's Ethan Smith as Lee Jordan. Lee is technically not a player, but he's one of the funniest parts of the Quidditch matches in the books. He's the stadium commentator and the best friend of Fred and George Weasley, which means his commentary constantly turns into biased praise for Gryffindor and sarcastic insults directed at Slytherin. Professor McGonagall repeatedly has to interrupt him mid-match because he stops describing the game and starts ranting about how unfair the Slytherin team is playing. That kind of humor barely appeared in the films, but if the series keeps the tone of the books, Lee Jordan could become one of those side characters that audiences instantly fall in love with. But the house that really tells us how ambitious HBO might be with this adaptation is Slytherin. There are 8 Slytherin students in this announcement, which is by far the largest group in the list. And that actually makes perfect sense when you think about how the books portray Hogwarts. Slytherin isn't just Draco Malfoy standing alone with a couple of random friends. It's a tight social group with its own hierarchy, its own Quidditch team, and a strong rivalry with Gryffindor that drives a lot of the tension in the early books. Oliver Croft will play Marcus Flint, the intimidating captain of the Slytherin Quidditch team. Flint is infamous in the novels for using aggressive tactics during matches and pushing the limits of what the rules allow. He's basically the opposite of Oliver Wood. Equally obsessed with winning, but far more willing to bend the rules. Around him is the rest of the team. D'Angelo Osei Kisiadu has been cast as Graham Montague. Dylan Heath will play Adrian Pusey, Cornelius Brandreth will portray Terrence Higgs, and Edison Birch has been chosen as Miles Bletchley. Then you also have James Dowell as Lucian Bowl and Henry Medhurst as Peregrine Derrick, the Beaters. If you're a book fan, Those names are incredibly familiar because they're mentioned throughout the early Quidditch seasons. Seeing them all cast at once strongly suggests the show wants to portray the full rivalry between Gryffindor and Slytherin on the pitch, something the films only scratch the surface of. And then there's one character that fans immediately noticed: Pansy Parkinson. Layla Barwick has been cast in the role, and this could actually be a much bigger deal than it sounds. In the films, Pansy was basically reduced to a background Slytherin student standing near Draco Malfoy in a few scenes. But in the books, she's far more present and far more vocal. Pansy is sarcastic, openly cruel toward Hermione, extremely loyal to the Slytherin clique, and often the loudest voice supporting Draco in public situations. She's the kind of character that constantly fuels house rivalries, and fans have been hoping for years that a new adaptation would finally portray her with the personality she has on the page. Then we move to the houses that the movies almost completely neglected: Hufflepuff and Ravenclaw. For Hufflepuff, the series has cast India Moon as Hannah Abbott, Jasmine Lewin as Susan Bones, Cian Eagleservice as Ernie Macmillan, and James Trevelyan Buckle as Justin Finch Fletchley. These characters might seem like minor background students at first, but in the books, they're part of the wider network of friendships and alliances that slowly form around Harry over the years. Justin Finch Fletchley, for example, is a Muggle-born wizard who originally planned to attend the prestigious Eton School before discovering he was magical. Ernie Macmillan is known for being extremely proud of his wizarding family lineage, but eventually becomes a strong supporter of Harry. And Hannah Abbott quietly becomes one of the recurring Hufflepuff students throughout the series. Meanwhile, Ravenclaw also gains several important names. Erin Zhao has been cast as Terry Boot, Eve Walls will play Lisa Turpin, Scarlett Archer will portray Penelope Clearwater, and Jula Murali will take on the role of Padma Patil. Padma's casting is particularly interesting because it corrects a detail from the films. In the books, Padma belongs to Ravenclaw while her twin sister Parvati is in Gryffindor. The movies place them both in Gryffindor, which always felt like a small but noticeable deviation from the source material. By restoring Padma to Ravenclaw, the series is quietly showing its commitment to those kinds of details. It might seem like a small thing, but fans who want a faithful adaptation notice these choices immediately. Taken together, these 21 names create something the movies rarely had time to show: a Hogwarts where each house actually feels populated. Instead of one central friend group surrounded by faceless extras, we're starting to see a network of students that could grow across multiple seasons. And that alone already makes the world feel closer to the books. Why these roles matter. At first glance, this announcement might look like a simple casting update. 21 new students join Hogwarts, and that's it. But when you look at the bigger picture of the story, these roles are actually extremely important for the long-term structure of the series. Because Harry Potter was never just the story of 3 friends solving mysteries every year. It was the story of an entire generation of students living through the same events from different perspectives. Characters like Hannah Abbott, Susan Bones, and Ernie Macmillan may not dominate the early chapters, but they slowly become part of the wider community around Harry. They attend the same classes, experience the same crises, and eventually participate in some of the most important moments of the series. When Dumbledore's army forms in the later books, for example, many of these so-called background characters suddenly become crucial members of the resistance inside Hogwarts. The emotional impact of those scenes depends on the audience already knowing who these students are. That's something the film struggled with because they didn't have time to properly introduce so many characters. But a television series has a completely different advantage: time. If HBO introduces these students early and gives them small moments across multiple episodes, viewers will gradually become familiar with them. By the time the story reaches the darker chapters of the saga, these characters won't feel like strangers. They'll feel like classmates we've watched grow up alongside Harry. Another fascinating part of this casting is that many of the actors are relatively unknown. And that's actually perfect for a story like Harry Potter. When actors arrive without huge Hollywood careers behind them, audiences can see them as the characters first, not as celebrities stepping into roles. That's exactly what happened with the original films back in 2001, Daniel Radcliffe, Emma Watson, and Rupert Grint were complete newcomers, and it allowed viewers to watch them grow into the characters over time. And some early details about these actors are already starting to circulate online. India Moon, who will play Hannah Abbott, recently shared a throwback photo of herself dressed as Hermione when she was younger. She wrote, "How it started? Not even in my wildest dreams did I ever think that Harry Potter would be reimagined as per the books, let alone be cast in it." That kind of reaction is something fans love to see. It shows that some of these actors grew up in the same fandom as the audience watching the series. There are also small connections forming within the cast already. Cornelius Brandreth, who will portray Slytherin seeker Terrence Higgs, previously worked alongside Lox Pratt, the actor cast as Draco Malfoy, in the BBC series Lord of the Flies. So before Hogwarts filming even begins, some of these actors already share on-screen history. Fans have also started doing what fans always do, comparing photos of the actors to the descriptions in the books and to famous fan illustrations that have circulated online for years. Some viewers are pointing out that Air Farrell, who will play Katie Bell, has a determined expression that fits the personality described in the novels. Others think Oliver Croft already carries the intimidating presence that Marcus Flint is supposed to have during Quidditch matches. Of course, these are early impressions, but that kind of speculation is part of the fun when a new adaptation begins to take shape. And visually, the cast already seems to solve one concern many fans had before the announcements began. The actors actually look like real Hogwarts students. They appear to be around the correct age range for first and second-year characters, roughly 11 to 13 years old. That detail matters more than people sometimes realize, because when actors are too old, it becomes harder to believe the school setting. Seeing a cast that genuinely looks like kids starting their magical education helps restore the feeling of watching a story unfold from the very beginning. When you combine that with the variety of houses, personalities, and backgrounds represented in this group, Hogwarts starts to look less like a movie set and more like a real community, and that might end up being one of the biggest strengths of the HBO series. Instead of focusing only on the heroes and villains, the show seems determined to bring the entire student body to life, which is exactly what the books always promised. There's also a noticeable level of diversity in the cast, with actors like Asha Soetan, Aaron Zhao, and Anjula Murali joining the wizarding world. And that actually fits pretty well with how J.K. Rowling described the wizarding world in the books. A global magical society with people from many backgrounds. In other words, Hogwarts should feel like a real school, not a tiny closed bubble. And this casting list suggests the series wants to show exactly that. So when you look at these 21 students together, the real takeaway is simple. Hogwarts is finally starting to look like the Hogwarts from the books. More students, more house dynamics, more Quidditch, more personalities beyond the main trio. And honestly, that's exactly what many fans have been waiting for. Now I want to hear from you. Which of these 21 new students are you most excited to see on screen? Let me know in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Peace.